welcome everyone. Super happy to be on Let's Talk AI. Today I am with Andrea Barenque. Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Hola, hola,
Hola.
from Mexico.
Yeah, I'm based in Madrid. And so I'm very good. It's pretty early here in Mexico. So thanks for taking the time and being here so early. And welcome back everyone on this crazy episode. I have so many things to ask to Andrea. But Andrea, first of all, could you introduce yourself in a few sentences for the people who are listening?
Okay, so that's. I think when people ask me that question, I think that's a very hard question. Like defining yourself and introducing yourself. Like you don't know where to start. But so my name is Andrea Barenque. I'm data intelligence consultant. I'm an expert in data policy in the public sector. I'm Mexican. And right now, I just founded a consulting agency called Datamorfosis. I think we will talk about that in a little bit in this podcast. And I think that's it. I mean, it very general introduction about myself.
It is, but we'll make sure to know you better through the episode. I have a second question that will allow us to know you better. The second question is, could you what are you trying to achieve? So you spoke about data morphosis. So you have an interesting career that will come back on specific moments right now, so that people can picture better how you came up with your actual company, Datamorphosis. But can you just briefly share what are you trying to achieve today?
Okay, yeah. So I've worked in government for around 10 years, I think, maybe over 8 years.
Hmm.
And I was always I always worked in tech related offices. And the first thing that I did when I was in university, I was very into program evaluation. That was like a thing of back there like in 2010. And that's the topic that I made my thesis about, actually. So I wanted to know more about how can governments evaluate programs and how they can make better decisions through assessment and all of that.
Hmm.
So since I started working in government, I wanted to do things better, or I wanted to understand how can government do things better.
Hmm.
So I found out like I was always involved in projects that was taking data as the source of any answer. Like,
Yeah.
okay, if we want to do better, then what do we do first? Like, you look at the data, you look at program evaluations, you look at how a government is spending the money. So right now, I think that I like throughout all my years in government, I detected that governments can do things differently. um, and right now, like, I want to build a very good case for this agency, and try to not convincing, but like showing the way to governments that you can actually do things differently with data, and you can actually use data as a main resource to take in better decisions, and something that will benefit you, well, will benefit people, will benefit citizenship, uh, but will benefit you as an institution and your processes. So right now, I'm trying to focus on what are those small things that I can teach to governments, and that small decisions, and like, not I'm not trying to change everything. I'm just trying to find little pieces that we can put together to make a real change within governments with data.
Hmm. That sounds super interesting. And you have quite a lot of experience working with governments. We'll get back to it right now. Well, first of all, thank you so much for this introduction and for being on the show.
Thank
Um,
you.
would it be too much to ask if you can like shortly drive us to like through your career? Like how you moved yourself and how you came up by building your company today. Uh,
Yes, yes. So okay, first thing I did is I was very interested in program evaluation, as I mentioned. So I started working in the Ministry of Finance here in Mexico, in federal government, and that was very fun because this is something that usually happens to me, and this is the moment that I just realized that. So when I started in government, this there was this new area which was like evaluación del desempeño. I'm thinking in Spanish. It was like
I can say it in
performance,
Spanish.
yeah, performance evaluation unit.
Okay.
That's the name of the unit. And this was think as this intelligence area that gather all the information of the evaluations of the federal government programs,
Mm-hmm.
like starting methodologies around how to use that information of the assessments, and how to make like an informed resource allocations for the programs for the next year, like evidence-based budgets and all of that. And it was very, very new. So I was part of that team at first, and I was starting to work with data and to budget data, which is not very easy to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, it was starting this movement around the world, the Open Government Partnership. And you started to hear about open data and open government and civic innovation and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, after that, I moved to a local government to start a new office about open government. So it
Okay.
was like the first office in a local level, which was responsible for implementing open government policies in Mexico. And then we have elections in Mexico, and the government changed. And it was I think 2014, 2015, and Mexico had its first national digital strategy office. So I was invited to be part of this new office again. So and they called me because they wanted to train and assess local governments on how to start publishing data and opening data and working with data in
Mm-hmm.
general, working
Yeah.
with open government data. So I went back to the federal government, to the office of the president, in this team of the National Digital Strategy. Over there, I was first in charge of this initiative with local governments. We trained them. We used to, part of my job was to look at best experiences, like in other countries, in other local governments, and
Mm-hmm.
try to um, uh, acercar. I forgot the word. Like put all the resources for local governments here in Mexico. It's like, hey, look at what I don't know, Madrid is doing with data, and
Mm.
there's a lot of open data portals over there in Latin America, and gather best experiences to to work with data here in Mexico at the local level.
Mm-hmm.
So those were very interesting years. Then I was responsible of the national open data policy here
Hmm.
in Mexico, working with obviously other government organizations, but also working with tech companies like Google, Twitter, and well, Facebook at that time, but Facebook, Twitter, Google, and how to use these technologies and open data to solve problems or public
Yeah.
problems.
Mm-hmm.
So
Wow.
then I took a couple of years to do my master's. I do it in policy management with a focus on big data and technology and artificial intelligence, And that's funny because I was very very interested in artificial intelligence. Like when I was working at the office of the president, I was convinced that that was the next step, like because everyone was talking about artificial intelligence. And actually in Mexico, that at that time we started to do like a national diagnosis for,
Yeah.
like, like an AI readiness
Hmm.
assessment for Mexico. And because we were planning to have like a national artificial intelligence strategy. So I started my master's thinking about that I wanted to learn more about AI. And because governments will start to implement AI solutions in their, like, within institutions,
Yeah.
etc. So um, then when I finished my master's, I wanted to change a little bit and try the private sector.
Okay.
And I wanted to work in a tech company, in a technology company. So I started working at Twitter. I found an internship. It was not an internship. They call it a fellow. You are like a fellow for 1 year and at Twitter. And this is a big opportunity for just like graduated students to start like working at this type of companies.
Hmm.
So I was part of the public policy and philanthropy team at Twitter in the Washington D.C. Office
Hmm.
for a year. And then the pandemic started. And it was very interesting. We can talk about a little. We can talk more about it. The my period at Twitter, but then I moved back to Mexico because of the pandemic,
Hmm.
and I started working at OP Analytics, which was because it doesn't exist anymore. This company was um, so Kavak. Do you know Kavak? This
I'm not sure. What is
no.
Kavak?
Kavak is it's a company that buys and sells cars.
Okay.
I think I'm actually it's Mexican, I think. Yeah. So they think they buy this company that I work for to be their like data analytics experts within this big
Okay.
company.
Okay.
So OP Analytics was dedicated to build AI solutions for basically for the private sector, but some governments look at us for developing AI solutions as well. So I was kind of in charge of those projects related to government and implementing like AI solutions for government. And then I took the decisions to create Datamorfosis, which is my consulting agency. So yeah, that's been my road so far. That's been
Wow.
my experience.
Well, thanks a lot for sharing for this throwback through your entire career, and I'm pretty sure there are so many points that right now my mind is exploding with questions. So let's try to make order in my mind and to ask you the
But you
best
wanna go
questions.
first?
This is a big decision. No, so well, first of all, thanks for sharing. This is a very interesting profile, and I'm very curious about like how you could compare governments and working in a tech company like Twitter, and those seems to be two very different environments to work and different ways to work. So will definitely get back on that. I think that my first question will be oriented more to the present.
Mhm,
I think I would like to ask you as a data intelligence consultant. Well, let's start with the government first.
mhm.
As a data intelligence consultant, you have a lot of experience working with governments, right? So, what kind of impact you have seen data and AI have on public innovation?
Okay, so first of all, what is data intelligence? I mean, I don't know if you have heard that concept before.
Data intelligence, I would love
Mhm.
to hear it again.
Okay, so it's very new, and I mean, I've heard that a couple of times, but for me, like for me personally, I think data intelligence refers to being very aware about the resources you have. Like,
Okay.
nowadays when you hear about intelligence, you will automatically think about artificial intelligence,
Yeah.
like when governments, or when you hear about, hey, yeah, we're doing this intelligent thing, blah blah, blah. You say, oh, okay, they're using algorithms and technology. It's very very tech related. But for me, it's like, okay, when governments have to be very aware about the resources they have, like the human resources, the financial resources, the organizational resources, their infrastructure, their policies. And once you know what you have, like the pieces you have for playing a game, then you'll take an intelligent decision about that. So data intelligence for me is not very related to technology. um, Even if you take into account that governments have technology and use technology and promote the use of technology, but more related to um, having a good idea about what you can do with what you have. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
intelligence, like,
Mm-hmm.
so if I have this piece of data, then I can do this, and if I have this type of technology, then I can do this. um, because governments usually are worried that they don't have like the latest or the top-notch technology, or they don't have like the enough resources, or public resources, or financial resources. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, don't worry, I mean, you can do a lot of things with what you have right now, like the data
Mm-hmm.
you generate right now. I'm sure you can take a better decision. And with the technology you have right now, I'm sure you can do very innovative things. So data intelligence for me is that.
Mm.
um, so yeah, that's interesting. Right?
It is.
um, so yeah, working with governments, I mean, governments, they always try to do better. Like, this is something that we need to remind ourselves, always, because we hear a lot of corruption things about government, and we hear a lot of bad things about people working in government. But actually, governments are always trying to do something good. I mean, they were born to do something good for people. And data and technology and AI are just another resource that governments have to, I mean, they just another resource for governments to use for make better,
Mm-hmm.
so this is not new. I mean, governments have been generated data since always, since a lot of years ago. So this is just another resource, and this is just another form to take advantage of that resource, that governments doesn't have to buy them. Like, they generate data all of the time, and they have lots and tons of data to work with. And new technologies that are so technologies were very far from government maybe a couple of years ago, but governments are very technologies are more accessible to governments now. And they are not so expensive as they used to be years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So um I don't know, like, the impact that data have in governments, it's very easy to see. It's
Mm.
just as simple as you can use data to take a decision. That's the more basic and simple example within government. Like,
Mm.
if an office, I don't know, if you want to start a new health policy, you just need to think about data, or about a problem, like
Yeah.
for defining a problem, you need to look at data. So governments have been working with data since all of times. Like, they know how to do that. I think they just need to be more analytical about that. not just thinking about, hey, yeah, I'm gonna use this technology, um, or I'm gonna use this data, or I'm gonna I don't know, implement this digital solution. But they need to start analyze, how did that go? Did that go okay? Did I take the good decision with this data? Does this technology actually is working for me? Like actually evaluate how are they using the data and the technologies.
Hmm.
I don't know if I answered that question, but
Yeah, no,
um
totally. It makes sense. No, it makes sense. You give a great scope of how you go from data intelligence into understanding how
mm,
governments works. It have always been producing data, and but the tricky part is like what kind of technology are they going to use, and like being more analytical about it and explore this data in different ways. And maybe sometimes this is the part that is missing from what I understand. Maybe for to make it a bit more concrete and for everyone who is listening to maybe picture it better, would you have some examples of projects that you
mm.
have led, uh, or where you implemented data analytics or data intelligence or AI, where you've seen a real impact? Could you share some examples?
Sure, yeah, yeah, yeah. So um what so working with AI, it's fun, and this is actually interesting for this podcast because every time I was asked to work or to develop or to lead an AI solution for government, um, we ended up just doing some I don't know, like statistics related project, or like we haven't, I personally haven't reached like the final step, like developing like a real AI solution. Why is that? Because um usually, so I this you have like a lot of experts in AI in this podcast, I'm sure, and maybe you are more expert in AI than me. But for an AI solution, you need a lot of data. Like you need data, and you need like a good understanding of what you are trying to achieve, or what are you trying to learn, and like a good algorithm. And you need a lot of things, but basically, you need data, and you need a lot of data to train like the solution. So every time I tried, or I have tried before, like in the past, doing an AI solution for government, we don't have the complete story of the problem we are trying to solve. We are missing pieces.
Hmm.
We are missing data. We don't have the enough data, like historical data, and or we usually miss something
Hmm.
for actually doing an AI solution. And this is very related to data governance and what I do in Datamorphosis, because it's like, oh yeah, we need to understand this problem, but this other office right there, they have that piece of data, and like data is disseminated between a lot of offices in government,
Yeah.
and the offices within government doesn't talk to each other, and you need like a complicated, very bureaucratic process to ask for the data, and the data is in different formats, so it's super complicated to have like
Yeah.
all the data to actually train an algorithm for the public sector.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's actually a reason that led me to found Datamorphosis. um, but I have a very good example of using data for a data intelligence project.
Awesome.
Back in 2000, and I have several. I mean, I have several, but this actually can, I can say that changed my life, because I was always talking and talking like in workshops, in trainings about, hey, open data is super beneficial for everyone, and we should all open data and publish data in open formats and all of that. But this is like the best case that I work with. Back in 2017, we had like a big earthquake in Mexico. I don't know if you remember that.
Hmm.
I was part of the national digital strategy. I was working in Mexico City, and an earthquake hit Mexico that morning, and it was very so it was a disaster. Like a lot of buildings went down. communications were cut, a lot of people were trapped. And for my generation, it was the first time that we were witnessing something like that, like something that big, because um, earthquakes are very common here in Mexico, and in Mexico City, like super common. Like, but that type of earthquake, it was very, very, very new for a lot of people.
Hmm.
So when that happened, uh, we had a lot of data coming in from people throughout social media. So people were tweeting and publishing in Facebook, hey, we have like a collapsed building here, or we need help over there, or hey, please come to this street. We need to rescue a couple of some people that are trapped, and it was like real time data that was coming into government asking for help. And exactly, like you knew exactly where to go and where to send people to rescue people, and where do you need to send medicines, and uh, materials for helping people to, or medicines, or medical equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you were or government at that point were able to take better decisions on how to address the emergency with data that was coming from people, actually, like
Mm.
we're using technology to ask help for the government. And it was a very good case, because 20 or 30 years ago that didn't exist. Like when we had the first earthquake, in like the first big earthquake, it was 1985. We didn't have internet, we didn't have social media, we didn't have a lot of things back then,
Mm-hmm.
but we had it now. And it was like, oh, okay, so maybe next time we can see, and we can start analyze data, and we can predict which are like the more like the zones with more risk to have like collapsed buildings. And we will be or more prepared to yeah, to an earthquake, or to
Yeah.
an emergency like this. So
Mm-hmm.
that was the point that I thought, okay, so you can actually save lives with data, like you can
Mm.
actually use this for a good thing.
Yeah. Wow, that's impressive. And so I understand that in that case, so people were sending information through internet or through or uh like trying to
True.
contact. And so in terms of like the solution that you developed, it was like how do you manage all this data in real time entering, and like
Mhm.
how do you attribute each information resources basically, no? So can you share a bit more insight on how did it went?
So we didn't have like enough, like much time. Well, government had to act very, very fast at that
Yeah.
moment. So the thing that we thought about, because people were tweeting about that. So,
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
there was no like official um, telephone number in which people call and report like a collapse,
Yeah.
or no, people were using their own social media to tweet or to publish something um, for the emergency. It's like, hey, there is a building that has just collapsed in this direction, and there was just tweets and tweets and tweets. So what we think about that is like, why not um, open like a collaborative, like a Google Drive, like a Google Sheets document, open for everyone. And so you can go in that file and put your I don't know, like making a report in real time over there, just like in a Google Sheets. I mean, you we don't need any more right now. We just need like a Google Sheets of like a list of things that we need to do, like a list of reports from people, and everyone has access to it, and we all have access to it. And actually something happened, because also, I mean, in on one side we were receiving a lot of data from people, reporting things to, like reporting missing people, reporting collapsed buildings or collapsed houses and all of that. But in the other hand, we had a lot of misinformation as well. We have a lot of information that was not real. So we started asking to people to actually validate that information. I
Hmm.
mean, if I saw that someone has reported my building, and I'm in my building right now and I'm seeing that my building, it's okay. It's like, hey, no, this is not true. I mean, that building has not collapsed. It's okay. So
Mm-hmm.
it started to be like a very participatory and in like inclusive process, or about reporting data and validating data and using data
Hmm.
for addressing the emergency. So yeah, we just used a Google Sheets file to make a list of the things
Hmm.
that people were reporting.
That's super interesting, and that also make me remember a lot about like building MVPs, like minimum valuable products. And
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
why
mm-hmm.
that? Because it might seem like a very repetitive manual task, but in the end, it's the premise of social media where people report problems and other people agree if this problem is real, so that we deal with false information, and
Uh-huh.
then it can allow to take better and faster decisions. And this is
Mm-hmm,
super interesting, and this describes perfectly, I feel, the data intelligence concepts that you were sharing before, which is how do I get all the data that I need and I know it's a good one to like start making good decisions and improve my whatever metrics I want to improve or objective that I have. But so it's
mm-hmm,
very cool to see also that most of the time the sexy AI solution won't come until the process is pretty advanced, but we have to go through that stage of data intelligence, gathering data, testing the MVP. Because in that case, if people weren't interacting with the Google Doc, it wouldn't have allowed the government to take faster actions and better decisions. So the term of testing and validating, which in this case
mm-hmm.
were efficient. So I feel like yeah, I truly relate to this story. And yeah, it's very
Exactly.
interesting to. And also I feel like nowadays it still works. Like you can just build a very manual task, but like try to test your project quickly, whether it's
Mm-hmm,
whatever solution you are building. But like this aspect of having something that can be really live fast, and then
mm-hmm,
thinking about how technically or how we're going to create the tool, then this comes in second. But first making sure that we can test and validate whatever we're building, so that people are really going to use it. And it relates also about what you said previously with governments, where most of the time governments might think that they need better technology or more data, but if you don't start at some point, you'll never start.
mm-hmm.
And so you need
Sure.
to start gathering what you have to know what you don't have and what you should have, and then grow from that. So yeah, super
Exactly.
super super exciting and super interesting. And
Yeah.
still speaking, or did you want to add something else to what I said?
Yeah, just one thing that you need to, so governments need to um learn how to take decisions with data, because
Mm,
technology and AI is not the goal. Is just they are tools. They are part of the process.
hmm.
So governments think about AI as the final step, or like working with lots of data as the main goal they're trying to achieve. But I mean, governments need to start, or I don't know, need to have better skills on how to use small pieces of data, or how to use the technology they have like in hand, to start like working with that very fast, as the example that I just shared with you. Like, you don't need to process a lot of data. You just have it there. What do you, or be innovative about the solutions to you need to implement. It's just that.
Hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Well, thanks a lot for sharing on this, and I totally agree. Like AI is really a tool, and most of the time we need first to look at the value of what we're trying to do, and AI is not always the solution, and it should like be the last thing we consider. Because for example, if like there is a new business, or I'm just building my brand and everything, I don't care about having predictive models. I just want to have like specific metrics that I can visualize
Hmm.
every whatever time I want, and define like both growth metrics that I will be able to use to measure like the short term, medium term, but also like specific measures that are different from this growth. I don't know if we're talking about a project, then my growth metric could be like the users growings, but some more specific metrics could be attributed to like each features. Like in the case of what you described, one measure like the solution you described regarding like where people needed help and people were approving. So we could see as for one growth measure of the overall tool, let's say, is the people who are interacting with the Google Sheets or the Google Docs. And
Hmm.
another metrics that could be interesting is like how many people are posting, and like the rate between true posts and false posts, and the
Yeah.
rate between, and so like dividing these two types of metrics I feel is one very important thing. And why am I taking the time to speak about these metrics? And it's because I feel like AI is really, it comes really after like when you know everything about what you're studying, and you know all the metrics, and you have all the dashboards, and you want to go a step further, and
Hmm.
then you start doing AI. And AI most of the time, like you said, it sounds sexy, but like a linear regression could be called AI. So it's really
Yeah.
it's really it's really yeah, it really comes to the how much value am I going to add with the solution. And so I feel like
Hmm.
even in careers, sometimes we want to implement sexy solutions, but the most efficient isn't doing AI at all. It's just like building a great dashboard, and
Right.
that might be enough. um
Yeah, we have something that we say here here in Mexico. It's like don't shoot flies with a tank, you know. It's
yeah,
like don't use a tank to shoot at a fly.
yeah.
So yeah, that I think that's the first thing that governments have to ask themselves is like, uh, do I really, why do we need, or when do we need an AI solution, and for what? um,
Hmm.
and for taking that decision, governments have to be very aware of what the problem is. Like if they just need to, as you mentioned, if they just need to automate some process, then you can do a lot of things, but not AI. But if you are very aware of the problem, like who is affecting it, like I mean, who's being affected by the
Yeah.
problem,
Hmm.
where they live, who they are, you have all the data to like constructing like an AI solution, then you will maybe decide to use AI. But first of all, like even if you reach out that position is like, okay, yeah, I'm ready for implementing AI. uh, then it comes the next question, which is related to ethics. Like, is this good for people? Like,
Mm.
is this going to be good for the people that are involved in this problem? So
Yeah.
it's not just about having the data and having the algorithms and having the technology. Then we start facing the ethics
Hmm.
thing,
Well,
right?
that's a perfect transition. Let's say this is my next question then. Like regarding ethics and
Uh-huh.
responsible solutions, like responsible
Right. Right.
technology, ethic technology. How do you how do you found limitations for AI or for the technology in public institutions and in the private sector?
Hmm. Yeah. So the limitations are actually So when you work in government, you learn that the legal is like the basis, like you can start working from, like, the legal framework is the first thing that you need to look at. It's like if you can do that or if you can't do this. And
Mm.
it's very easy. It's a very easy decision because it's there. It's like there is a law or there is a guideline or there is some regulation. You just need to read it and know what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah. Hmm.
But with AI and with the limitations regarding AI, like bias or I don't know, common com- you, the lack of common sense or the lack of emotion when you deal with AI
Hmm.
or all of the limitations that AI could have. Um, you also need to think about if this is good or not. I mean, I was hearing about I was hearing a podcast related to ethics, and that's a very hard question, but it's also a very easy one. It's like
Hmm.
when you if you are the one that will take a decision about uh, implementing AI or not, or whatever decision you need to take. It's not about reading a regulation or reading a law or deciding what type of technology is more efficient than another, or it's just it's a very internal and very personal question. It's like, is this good? Is this really good for people? So I think there are a lot of tools over there, like ethic frameworks from the international community, or ethics guidelines, or a lot of things maybe that can help, and I'm sure they can help governments deciding to, or helping them decide to whether to use AI or not. But this is something that like no one else will take a decision better than a person.
Hmm.
So you won't be able, or maybe we won't be able to determine if something is ethical or not, by a process or by an automated process, like, okay, I'm going to put this algorithm, and another algorithm will tell me if this is ethic or no. It's like, no, this is something that people still need to think and to work with. Like, people still need to decide if AI is suitable or not, for each case. Um, so AI still depends on people, like still depends on human right now.
Hmm. Hmm. Well, that's makes total sense. And speaking about people, let's say you have a team, whether you work in the private sector or in the public sector. What kind of skills would you look for in people that will create those technical teams or use those data-oriented minds that will implement those kind of solutions, whether it's AI, whether it's data intelligence. Like what are the skills that are important for people to be successful in this team and for make high valuable teams?
So the first of all, I think it will be problem solving, because AI and the use of data and data intelligence is about that. It's about um, solving problems and answering questions. I always say that data answers questions. If we have any question, we can answer it with data. Like, even if what time is it, like what day is it, the answer is data. I mean, data help us answer questions, any type of question. So the first of all is problem solving. That'll be that. People interested in understanding complex problems, because problems right now are more complex than ever. Like, society is very complex and economy is super complex right now, and all of that. So problems are getting more complex every day. So I'm looking for people that are interested in solving problems. Then communication, like communication is a very very important soft skill, and because being honest about the solution you are proposing, being honest about understanding the problem that you are trying to solve, being honest about or communicate if something is not very has not been very understood so far, or communicate that maybe there's a better solution than the one that we are thinking right now. So that would be the next one. And also, this is interesting, but a soft skill that I consider super important in this type of of teams is emotional intelligence. um, Emotional intelligence is described as the ability to understand and manage your own emotions, right? And working with data and working with artificial intelligence, you need to separate both things, because then it comes bias, or you have, or maybe you have like a background related to that problem, and you start like combining emotions and combining, my experience. And it's so emotional intelligence, I think it's very important, not just for my teams and the people that I work with, but soft skills considered for governments when thinking about building AI teams or data teams. People that can be aware of their own emotions and recognize their own emotions, and can recognize the moment that their own emotions are starting to influence the solution they are designing.
Hmm.
So emotional intelligence and collaborations as general, like people need to work in teams always
Hmm.
to actually understand a problem.
I see. Well, thanks. Thanks. I would like to ask you briefly about your experience at Twitter. So you've worked at Twitter, and I would like to know about the U.S. public policy field. So
Mhm.
how does working at Twitter, how does this experience impacted your approach to data and AI consulting in Mexico and globally?
Okay, so yeah, Twitter was fun. Twitter was fun. The Twitter that I work with, like the ones that had another CEO. I'm gonna tell more about that, but yeah, Twitter was very fun, and I was actually very proud to be part of the team, because wow, I mean, I never imagined to work at the Washington D.C. office of Twitter, and working with people around the world and super experienced, and it was very enlightening for me in so many forms. But first of all, yes, you mentioned it before, like, you think that governments and tech companies work very differently. They're not. They work the same. Like, they have the same issues and the same communication problems and the same bureaucratic processes, and they are all the same. I mean, maybe tech companies or the private sector have more resources, or maybe more skilled people working, and I'm not actually agreeing with that, but they're the same. I mean, all public or private institutions are made of people. It's not very different. And what I was looking for when I started to work at Twitter is that I wanted to be part of the team that, like this multidisciplinary team, because I when I work in the government of I mean, when I work at the National Digital Strategy here in Mexico, we were a very multidisciplinary team. I mean, we were working with people, expert in public policy, expert in economics, like graphic designers, programmers, and we were working hand in hand, like trying to solve the problem and trying to implement innovative solutions for the Mexican government. So I was very used to work with many kinds of people, and people with different backgrounds, and I thought that was very common, or that was like, the rule in the private sector, but it's not. And when I started at Twitter, I wanted to know more about uh, how they manage data and how they, design their algorithms, and how they work with governments to do something related to AI. I was very into data, like wanted to know more about data. And then I started with this public policy and philanthropy team, and realized that Twitter itself worked in silos. Like the engineers they work in San Francisco, the marketing team is in New York,
Mm-hmm.
you are public policy, and you need to be in Washington. And so it's very, very siloed in there. It's like, okay, I'm never gonna work with data here. Like, I'm part of the public policy team, and
Mm-hmm.
my background is not technical, so they won't consider me part of the engineering team. No, like, never, right?
Mm-hmm.
So so the ones that were actually working with data, they were like very, very far, like they were in the other side of the country.
Mm-hmm.
And I will never meet them, and they were like the engineers, and that's it. And but we I mean, that was the first thing that I understood what I started to. It's like, okay, it's okay, maybe I'll do another things, I will learn more, another things here. um, so we were the team in charge of looking at the health of the conversation that was going on at the platform. you know Misinformation, disinformation, everything regarding, for example, pornography, um, everything that could be a potential harm to
Mm-hmm.
people in the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. We were looking at that, like
Mm-hmm.
policies related to look at what you can do and what you can say and what you can do using social media. And
Mm-hmm.
that was also obviously very related to not the legal part but the ethical part as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I learned a lot. I was um, we were There's a good example as well related to emergencies, because
Mm-hmm.
when I was in Twitter, the pandemic started, and it started, like, in Asia. And we launched this prompt when you enter Twitter, and if you type like coronavirus, you could get like a message
Mm-hmm.
that sends you to the official website in your country to look to official information and real information about how governments were addressing coronavirus. So if I was in Mexico and I typed coronavirus, the prompt will send me to the official Mexican government website. So that was a very good application of technology for crisis, right? And using what you are what you have right now, what you have at that time, for making good. So it was good. I mean, it was very tech related. It was not so data related, but it gave me more tools to work with right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome. Super interesting to hear about the other side of like how the teams at Twitter are like not in the same place, and how do um how does your team in Washington approach these kind of problems, and
Mhm.
even more in a time of pandemic. uh, Very interesting. So thanks for sharing. And so regarding so this is your time at Twitter. And but I would like to ask you briefly about Datamorphosis now. I would like to
Mm.
know about what led you to Datamorphosis, and how do you construct a narrative to sell services of Datamorphosis to potential clients. And like how Datamorphosis is different. This is a three question in one kind of, but like um yeah, I would like to ask you about the three questions at the same time, if that's not too much to ask.
No, no, no. It's okay. Okay, so Datamorphosis. First of all, it's obviously it's a compound of words like data and metamorphosis. um, And I would start with that because I was looking at the metamorphosis concept in Google, and it's like, okay, what's metamorphosis like? We automatically think about a butterfly, right? Like how a
Mm-hmm.
butterfly becomes a butterfly. And I was reading that it's a process. It's a process that some animals, like in nature, some species, they reach to a point, or they get to a point in which evolve is not an option for them. And this is very, very, like, it opened my mind. It's like, they start living, and then at what point in their lives it's like, okay, I need to transform. This is not an option. It's the time, and they start transforming themselves. And metamorphosis in nature is a process, and it changes you, or change the animal in shape, in functions. It's like a whole transformation for
Mm-hmm.
an animal. And when I was thinking about, when I think about governments, I think them as not as systems, like a living system, because it is comprised of people. It's like public institutions are comprised of people and persons that are continuously evolving and continuously learning and growing. So for me, public institutions, they reach that point, or they are reaching it right now, or they are at that point in which evolving is not an option. It's like government need to transform themselves right now. And if they don't, they will die. Like they will definitely be part of the past. And I mean, it's a natural thing for governments to evolve right now, using data and using technology. So that that's like what the name Datamorphosis comes from.
Mm-hmm.
um, so based on that, the next thing is that I wanted to do things differently with data,
Okay.
because I've been part of many governments here in Mexico, and I know that things can be done differently. Like I've seen it and I've witnessed that, and I know that governments usually spend a lot of time in bureaucratic processes, in, like, hey, I need to write that memo, or they you usually waste a lot of time. And people within governments, they are afraid to propose, and they are afraid to innovate, and afraid to ask, and afraid because they, like, I mean, it's obvious, people in government, they don't want to do nothing that they are not supposed to. And when working with data and technology, you need to be brave, and you need to be and think out of the box. And thinking out of the box is not very, I don't know, easy, or it's complicated, but governments can work differently, and can actually start working with data in a very easy form. Even
Mm-hmm.
if it's a Google sheet, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can take better decisions using a Google sheet, right? You don't need like an AI solution. So yes, I wanted to form a team that assess governments, and not only doing consulting projects, and hey, I don't care anymore, and I here's my report, and goodbye. But to um, go hand in hand with governments in their own data transformation, in their own metamorphosis, or in this case, in their own transformation with data,
Mm-hmm.
going from 0 to 100, like from end to end to end. It's like, where do you need to start? What resources you have right now? What's your workforce? What are the skills that of your teams? What data you have? What technology you have? What type of problems you are trying to solve right now? And construct or build that intelligence with them, so they can, at what point, uh, finalize their transformation, and then be able to take, or to be intelligent to make better public policies, or make more efficient programs, or actually creating value in society. And um, yeah, that. So
That's
it's a lot of things, but it's actually related to that. It's like I want to be the one who helps government in using data in a better way, uh, with simple tools and simple processes and simple methodologies.
makes sense. Very clear. All right. Thanks a lot. Um, so I see that we're almost around an hour of recording. So I would have three little more questions for you, if that's okay. The
Mhm.
first one being, and you mentioned it a little bit before, but would you have any advice to people who are aspiring data intelligence consultants, or people who are interested in the career path that you had? Would you have some qualities or tips, like how to learn, how to consistently learn, where to learn, what to follow, what to read? Like, do you have some tips like that for those people?
um wow, so I would refer to the international community, and maybe organizations that are like international organizations that are interested, or that are constructing guidelines for governments.
Hmm.
The first thing is like UNESCO, from the UN, and their ethics framework that they just released like a couple of years ago. I can share some links for you. But look at these institutions that are understanding what to do and what not to do, and creating like ethics canvas or ethics framework for governments, or to people or institutions working with reducing bias, or this there's a movement related to feminism, and like all these gender topics, and AI, and all of that, because um, there's a lot of information, and there's a lot of resources on how to develop an algorithm, or for the technical part.
Hmm.
And we need to start looking to the social part, like what are the limitations, or the challenges, or the potential harms that AI can come from. And I don't want to sound very pessimistic, but we need to start looking AI from the social, from a social lens, because at the end it will impact people somehow. So I mean, I don't have a specific source, or recommendation, or not that I can think of right now, but more um I don't know, like podcasts, or like, I mean, like yours, or like um, um, blogs right there, that talks about the other thing related to AI, the one that is not related to technology, but the one that is related to people.
Hmm. Well, thanks for those
Mhm.
tips. And so the second question, before asking you if you have a message for the Let's Talk AI community. The second is, if people want to know more about you, wants to follow your work, and maybe contact you in some way, where should they reach out? Is it LinkedIn? Is it a mail? Or is it a website?
Yeah. Our website is datamorphosis.mx. You can find us on social media as well. At Twitter, my handle is at Andrea BQUE. I can here put
Ah,
it in
I will put it in
chat.
the description. No
Okay,
worries.
perfect. Yeah, you can find me at Twitter. At Twitter, you can find Datamorphosis as well, at Datamorphosis MX. So yeah, we're in social media. I'm in LinkedIn. So yeah, everyone can reach out over there.
Awesome, thanks. And last question, and I want to thank you a lot for coming on the podcast and sharing about all your experience and all those very important topics that are less on the technical side, but those topics are truly what makes data and AI super important nowadays, and we need to really take into account what are the impacts of what is going on. And we were discussing before recording about how crazy it have been lately with all the new models going out and all the new possibilities. Like next years are going to be wild in terms of AI, and AI regulation is one of the biggest thing right now, I feel personally, to look at, because the growth, I feel like the growth have never been that fast in technology, and so this at some point needs to be regulated, and governments and people who are implementing laws around it need to be very aware of what's going on. And it's great to have people who can build things, but it's very important to understand, to have people that understand what can be built and how to prevent
Hmm.
harm from people who
Hmm.
can really see the dangers in those new technologies. So again, like you said, I'm not pessimist. I'm just saying it is an important thing to do. But I'm super excited about AI, and it's a tool in the end. Like you said, it's not something bad or something good. We just need to do the right things in the right time so that we can prevent and maximize
Hmm.
the like doing less harm in the world.
Right.
So thanks so much. And my last question is basically, do you have a final message for the Let's Talk AI audience? And for me, do you have a last message that you would like to share with us?
So I would say there's this quote that says like use technology wise, and that's part of being intelligent as well. It's like, okay, if you are going to use technology, or if you are gonna use data, or AI, or anything, any kind of tool, just be wise about that, and remember that the impact will be on people, and we are all trying to do best with what we can and what we have. So I don't know, just being wise on the solutions we proposed, and being wise on the tools we use for making those solutions. So that will be it. And like data, don't forget about data. It's something that I tell governments all of the times. Like you are already in the hype of AI, but don't forget about data, because you will need it. You'll still need data, so don't forget that before AI there is data.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Andrea, for coming on the show. It was a pleasure to learn from you. I look forward to learn more about you on your socials. I'll put every link in the description, and I wish you to have a wonderful day.
No, thank you, thanks as well, thanks for the invitation.